Have you been wondering if inflammation in your GI tract is maybe part of what's been going on with you with your health issues or something that's been derailing perhaps your hormonal imbalance? If you are and you're thinking, but gosh, I don't really have a lot of digestive distress symptoms, this episode is for you. I want to unpack the different ways that we can know that our gut is saying, hey, I need some help without having explicit digestive distress. If you're new here, I'm Rita Johnson. I'm the owner of Health and Hormones, and here we talk about all things from gut healing to hormone balancing, fatigue solutions, and period help. Let's dive in. So today I want to first start talking about what is ideal digestion. I believe that a lot of times when I'm working with somebody, that I don't always start with the assumption that something is wrong digestively. However, it's so common to have some amount of digestive issues period, that I think it's really good to start by saying, let's define what is healthy, regular bowel movements. Just because it's regular or normal for you, it doesn't mean that it is where things should be. So when we're talking about digestion, ideally, I want you to be able to eat without any discomfort, no belching, bloating, burping, any of that, no feeling like food just sits at your stomach or does not move along in the digestive process. There should be no discomfort in that, and bowel movements should be at least once daily. They should be about the consistency of peeled banana, and there shouldn't be any need for additional cleanup. It should really be minimal, and you should feel like you've completely evacuated the bowels. Now, sometimes people will say that sometimes that's how it feels, but sometimes it's not, or more often it's not. And these are just all signs of looking at where we are and where we're going. So I like to just start by differentiating that, because we don't know what's normal oftentimes, because we're used to our own body, what's normal for our own body and what's normal for those family members that we live with. So starting from this place, you may still say, you know what, that's pretty much me. Like, I don't notice any digestive discomfort. I don't notice any of these other things. So how do I know if my gut is the problem? So some other things that can tell us that we might need to do some additional support for your digestive system, even if things are moving along regularly, which would be, absent of those primary symptoms. So some other signs that our gut will speak to us and tell us that it needs some support are skin health issues. So this might be acne, this might be eczema, this might be a rash that kind of travels around. Always it can be something like, a food reaction or a food sensitivity, but it may not necessarily be that. It might actually be more to do with the microbiome, the dysbiotic bacteria that has taken up root in the gut microbiome. I like to think of these as the weeds in the gut garden. I think it's really helpful to think of them as weeds, because there's only so much we can do in terms of, eating more probiotic-rich foods, in terms of crowding them out. Oftentimes we do need to uproot them. We need to dig them out and kill them off to really have that long-term lasting support that our body needs. Some other signs that you might have some digestive distress, something that is telling us like, hey, this could be where part of the problem is. Oftentimes I'll see things like if somebody's feeling nauseous a lot, or pain in between their shoulder blades, or even having a lot of clots during their period. These can all be signs of needing to support the particular axis between the liver and the gallbladder. So our liver creates bile salts, our gallbladder stores bile salts, which are then released at the time of digestion to help us break down, absorb, and utilize the fats that we're consuming. If we're not having bile salts released at that moment, or if our liver is really struggling because it's trying to support some other systems in our body, or it is congested, then it's not going to be able to work optimally either. And so perhaps those bile salts aren't available for us when we're consuming our healthy fats, or perhaps they were not provided to them by the gallbladder. Perhaps the gallbladder is having some problems. And those are what some common signs look like there, but some not as common things that I'll see that we need to support the liver, gallbladder, is also things with our sex hormones. If we are really low hormonally, and I would say this particularly if you're in your 20s and 30s, it's normal for us as we are get into our 40s to kind of see this lowering of our sex hormones, our cholesterol-based hormones that happens, as an organic part of this perimenopause season, right, which is really mirroring puberty. I like to think of it as puberty is like taking off on an airplane. We're slowly getting up to altitude, and then in perimenopause, we're slowly landing the plane. So that's where we can see some additional support needed here. But this can also be seen in the perimenopause time, in that if we're having a really difficult time with this transition, there can be something going on, particularly with the liver is what I see most often, but it definitely can be some part of the digestive process. In addition to this, if we're having immune reactions, so this could be anything from seasonal allergies to you are the first line of any cold that comes in your way, you're always going to get it, you're going to get hit hard, you're going to get hit longer. These are signs that we need to support our gut. I like to think of it visually as like the digestive tract is, essentially coated with your immune system, right? It's not entirely present around your GI tract, but the vast majority of it is found there. And so if there's inflammation in the digestive tract, there's going to be inflammation in the immune system. You kind of think of them as going off of each other. So it's like your gut is telling your body, hey, there's something wrong here. And then your immune system's like, what is it? Where is it? What's the problem? And so it's on high alert all the time. And these things like our seasonal allergies, like our ability to ward off the common cold, our propensity to get anything that comes our way, it becomes heightened along with that as well. Another thing that commonly creeps up when our digestive health is getting worse and worse is food reactions. We might notice that we have a growing list of foods that we react to that we no longer can eat. Oftentimes there are favorite foods or foods that we were eating regularly that can be a pretty big indicator that something's going on in the gut, and it can be a sign of leaky gut. And I know that a lot of times people like to stand behind leaky gut and be like, oh, this is it, this is what I have. But the reality is that even leaky gut is not a root cause solution. Leaky gut is telling us that there's inflammation there. You're reacting to foods you're eating, but the food that you're eating, taking that out, although it may make some of those symptoms go away, it's not healing the problem of soothing and calming that inflamed gut environment. So we really want to be careful with a lot of these things. We want to be sure that we're really digging deep enough to find what is the root cause, and sometimes it can be a parasite. Sometimes it can be a candida overgrowth. Sometimes it can be something that happened in our past. I see this happen where if somebody was a vegetarian in their past, then they went through a period of time where they did not have the ideal ingredients to make hydrochloric acid, to make stomach acid, to break down their protein sources. And so even if that was 10, 20 years ago, now their body could still be compromised and need additional digestive support. And without that, it's continuing to be inflamed in the gut environment without having those tools, those resources to have healed, to have appropriate hydrochloric acid support added back in, and all of the steps needed in that process. So just remember, sometimes we want to know, but how did it get this bad? Why did it get this bad? There can be a whole host of reasons. I worked with somebody one time who had an appendix removal, and he noticed a high amount of GI issues ever since then. And I met with him about 30 years after he had his appendix removed. We ran a GI map, and he had everything from candida overgrowth to a parasite to lots of dysbiotic bacteria to very low gut microbiome to H. pylori. And so we just needed to do some really deep work and do some of that support for his body so that it didn't continue to struggle. And when we did that, his skin health got a lot better. His symptoms that he was dealing with, like snoring at night and constantly clearing his throat, they got better. And that's what we should always notice as well. Going back to the beginning of this episode, noticing that we're achieving more often that ideal bowel movement, the regularity, all of that plays a part in healing your gut as well. So if you're wondering, is my gut a part of what's going on with my problems, with my hormonal imbalance, with my constant headaches, with my low energy or fatigue or thyroid issues? The answer usually is yes. And doing a deep dive into understanding the different ways that our gut communicates to us that it needs support can be a really big first step in getting you started down that right path of healing.